Okay, so continuing with the story, there we were in one motel with 6 people and 2 dogs. And 4 of those people were 2 teenagers and 2 preteens. And the fun, the novelty had worn off, and they were like wild people, so caught in this little room. The winter had started, the sun was over now, and they knew in their heart that we had ruined their lives, and they saw no hope, because when it all came down to it, there seemed to be 0 hope at all. We didn't even know where our next meal was coming from. And here we had plans to move to Kenya. We had given away, not given away. Well, that was before in our other story, but this time we were homeless. If you look back, you'll see why we were homeless. And we had no car. We had no income. Jose had quit his job so that we could move to Kenya. We had a house rented in Kenya, but now the rent had fallen behind. We had communicated with them, and they were still, at least temporarily, holding the home for us. And we had almost no hope. And the hardest thing about the whole thing, besides the obvious thing of our kids thinking that we had ruined their lives, was that everything that we believed in was on the line. Everything. I mean, we had, for all the time that we had been Christians, we had both been Christians for many years by this time, and we had heard the stories. We had heard the stories of, there's this man many years ago in England named George Mueller. If you want to look him up, he had nothing, but he wanted to make orphanages, and he on his own started to make these orphanages, and he believed in only asking God for help. And then it's like groceries would just arrive there. And we'd heard other stories of things like this happening without asking God, and that's how we believed. You know, unless he tells you, ask, with only asking God, not asking men, because if we believed he was who he said he was, right, then, and all the things in the Bible, then he should be able to hear us and provide, right? Right? Well, everything was on the line, and I think that would have killed us more than anything, because eventually we could have, also we had looked for jobs and nothing was opening up, but eventually, by hook or by crook, by begging or whatever, we could have somehow made a new life for our kids. But the thing that hurt the most was it seemed like God wasn't hearing us. It seemed like nothing we believed was true. It seemed like, all these things of him providing for people without asking man, it seemed like it wasn't happening for us. So we felt that was the thing that hurt most, that was ripping our hearts out. So all right, so anyway, what happened was, the way that God provided for us, all of a sudden, all right, because we did have money for the first week of food, where we would walk up to the grocery store and just buy the cheapest thing. Like we were buying ramen noodles, and we didn't have any way to cook them, but we would make, motels, water is usually very hot. So we did buy from the dollar store 2 big bowls, and we bought the ramen noodles, and we would take turns putting the very hot motel water in, and then putting a book on top, and then letting it kind of like just soak in. And that's and that's how, and in the beginning we did have a little bit of extra money, and that's how we were surviving. And then angels started to arrive at our doorstep without asking anybody for anything. People that knew us sought us out and started to arrive on our doorstep. There was 5 women in particular. By the end of the story, I'll be able to tell you that we had in all 7 women who were our angels, but at this time there was 5 women that at different times they would just feel from God that they were supposed to bring us food, or they were supposed to give us money for rent. And the rent, as I told you, was $200 a week. And it was amazing, amazing. And this is kind of biblical, because women took care of Jesus, you know, like would feed him and things like that, if you look back into the Bible. But anyway, it's like besides the donuts in the morning, we never went hungry, that there was always something. So this was, at least we're seeing this, right? But here, what were we going to do with our futures? Well, as the kids started to settle down, as they saw people coming and providing for us and spending time with us and things like that, so they started to settle down. Well, we started there in September, and if you watch my other one, I told you we were there a whole time of 13 weeks, right? 13 weeks in all. Sorry, I mumble, can't get the words out right. 13 weeks in all, but halfway through, so we started there in September, halfway through in October, we all came to a place of peace. One day we were all in harmony. And at that time I felt God tell me, get out a piece of paper and a pen, and all of you brainstorm of everything that you're going to need to get to Kenya. So we started to write it all out. Well, when we got to the end of it, we added it all up, because we were going to need to ship our dogs. We had a bunch of boxes that were being stored for us in our friend's home. We were going to need, the airplane tickets, all these different things. When we got to the end of, and plus to pay back the rent, the back rent on the home, when we got to the end of it, it all added up to $25,000. And then we all laid hands one on top of the other, and we all asked God, God, please provide this. And then there was a wish list of, it all came to like 100,000, but let's start with 25,000. Anyway, that would just get us there. So then we all added up, we all believed together. And then from then on, we didn't ask anymore. We just thanked God. And we were still feeling numb, right? The way I personally got through it is every day I would study Swahili. That was my way of getting through it. Jose's was ranting to God and stuff like that. Well, it came, the way that our big breakthrough came was, there had been friends, during this time, there had been friends that would once in a while take us to different things, like for Thanksgiving, somebody took us or gave us money or something, and we all went to eat at a restaurant. Our family walked to a restaurant and things like that. But then what happened was, one day there was going to be a party at our friend's home. And so they picked us up and took us over there, and they asked Jose to preach. Okay, to speak from his heart on some of the things that, he had learned, okay? And, sorry, I keep saying okay. Anyway, and at that party, there was 2 women that were strangers, had never met us before, but they were older women that, well, not older, but they were both on widows or divorcee and lived on their own and lived on a fixed income and everything. Well, anyway, there was these 2 women that loved the way that Jose preached so much. We had never met them before. They said, could we pick you up once a week on Sunday, and then you will teach us. And so that started. Well, guess what? This is where the miracle really started. the first big breakthrough. And that was that they picked us up on one Sunday that was the third week in to it. This will be the third time that we had been there. And we would leave the kids in the motel, but we would go. And they were so excited, both of them. And so then we get over to their home, and they said, "We've got something for you." And so it turned out that God had spoke to one of the women and had asked her, and asked her to ask us. No. Sorry, I messed up. Because one of the women, he asked her to ask us something, but then the other woman was, all of a sudden, God had spoke to her when she was taking a shower and asked her to give to us $10,000. And he spoke to the other woman and asked her to allow us to move into her trailer because Christmas was coming up. And we couldn't believe it. Out of the 25,000, without asking anybody but God, the first 10,000 had come in. And we were able to get out of the motel and live in a home, a very squished home, but it worked. And we're so grateful. So I'm going to leave it there because there's a lot more good things to come. Okay, bye.